We all understand the type of climate that we're dealing with. We're dealing with multiple offer situations.
I'd love to know sort of what's your why? What makes you tick? Why are you so successful?
Have a dialogue with your lawyer. Have a dialogue with your agent.
Both sort of passionate about sort of what we do.
Again, vet your agent to make sure that they're experienced and they're local. I like that idea.
No excuse to miss it on Saturdays from 8 to 9.
That's right.
WBZ.
And now, the show that gives you the latest and most relevant housing market news. Real Estate Radio Boston with financial expert Rick Shearer and legal professional Ali Alavi.
And you know what? It's funny because Rick says this all the time. It's one of the most popular programs that he offers his customers. Mm-hmm. And if you are a lender that is not offering mass housing, the likelihood is that you're trying to divert the customer away from that program.
Absolutely.
And it's such a disservice to customers because you could put 3% down and buy your first home.
And you have the lender paid PMI option.
Exactly.
Which is, I think, for most consumers, once they learn about that, is such a breath of fresh air. They're all concerned, oh my God, I don't have 20% down. What am I going to do? And with that option, it's off the table. And I think, again, another unique opportunity for people in Massachusetts.
Right. So for those of you who don't know, PMI is private mortgage insurance. If you're putting less than 20% down, you're going to be required to pay that yourself. And in this case, and actually, really, most, if not all of that profile of customers and clients and buyers that go to Rick, they end up getting what's called the LPMI, or lender paid PMI. So basically, you're building the PMI into the rate. PMI this year is not tax deductible.
Correct.
And so therefore, you can't benefit from any tax deductions, and you're shelling out all this money every month. But better yet, you can actually build it into the rate. You're paying a little higher rate, but you're essentially taking benefit of that tax deduction, which is wonderful.
Correct. Good thing you're here to explain that.
Well, I learned it all from Rick.
Thank God.
I own an investment property, let's say, a multifamily. I'm renting all 3 units today.
Okay.
And I decide that I want to now sell this property, leverage its gain to purchase the next property.
Sure.
What I can do is use this 1031 tool in order to not escape having to pay taxes, because that's really the key term here, but I'm actually deferring having to pay taxes.
That's correct.
What's the benefit of that?
The benefit is that you can basically use the money that you would normally pay to the federal and state governments in capital gains taxes towards your next purchase. So it's a loan that you might not ever have to pay back as long as you go by Section 1031 guidelines.
So it's a wealth building, really, tool.
Yes, it is.
It seems to me.
It is.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Again, for our listeners. Because it's a deferral, when are the taxes paid, or are they ever paid?
The taxes are paid once you sell out and cash out. If there's no sale, there's no tax.
Okay.
So therefore, you want to make friends with estate planning and attorneys,
okay.
and a tax attorney.
Okay.
Right. So I think really what you're asking, Josh, is very, very important. It is tax deferred, but if you're using the requisite vehicle, and if it's structured properly, you may in fact not ever have to pay those taxes. Is what you're saying? Right?
You can literally swap till you drop.
Wow.
I like that.
I like that.
We're going to use that for promotion of the next time you come in and train the agents. It's a swap to your drop training.
Josh, you had a question regarding a particular scenario that actually happened to you.
Yes. I had a client contact me and say, I want to sell 2 multifamilies that I own, and I want to do a 1031 exchange to buy another residence, a second residence. He was keeping his primary and wanted to buy a condo in the city. So he wanted to sell 2 multifamilies in the town that we were in and then buy. And I said, I don't know if you can do that. I don't know anything. We got to call Lynne. So tell the listeners, can you do a 1031 if you have more than one property? Can you use multiple properties in the sale? Can you use multiple properties in the transactions? And how does that affect the timeline?
Yes, you can. You can actually combine the funds from both exchanges. Realize that if the closing dates are different, it goes from the date of the sale of the first one, all your timelines. So you can actually sell multiple properties to buy just one. There's no limit up front. But my question from what you said is, what's he going to use that condo for? It can't be a second home, but it needs to be another type of investment property.
Yeah, in other words, that
out.
condo in the city needs to be used for rental purposes, for investment purposes.
And I believe that's what he was going to do.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe he had a son in the city, he was going to have it rented out, and then eventually sell his primary, move to the city as his new primary after he sold his main residence where he was living.
That's a
See,
whole,
this is like a whole,
that's a whole nother
and this
scenario.
is why we need Lynne.
Because your intent at the time of the exchange must be to buy a property that you're going to use for productive use in trade or business or for investment. So once he satisfies that, fine. Now, if he wants to convert it to a primary later down the road, he needs to satisfy the requirements of the exchange first, and then at some point in time, he can move into it as a primary. But work closely with the tax advisor and make sure you know all about the Section 1031 piece about doing that. Then there's another issue if you want to sell it as a primary later because you've got some qualified and non-qualified use time, but still
That's
you'll defer a lot of taxes. That's
so
another conversation.
What I'm hearing clearly is that it is imperative that you have someone who understands this process and not just someone like me who thinks they know a little something, or maybe their attorney who's dabbled in it. It's really important to have a great realtor, great mortgage person, great attorney, but also if you're going down this road, you need the services of someone like Lynne and her company.
I tell you, Josh, I mean, there is a ton of clients that call me. I mean, Lynne is my go-to person when it comes to 1031. I mean, I know enough to be dangerous. I know enough to know, what particular scenario may satisfy or it may not satisfy it. But I will never purport to be an expert in it. And I channel those clients always to Lynne. And Lynne has, I think you have more checklists on this particular area than anyone else I have ever encountered. And they are very, very helpful in terms of the checklist that she has. A lot of people say, you know what, the real estate market sort of does its own thing in terms of the trends. We know the spring market is the spring market, the fall market is the fall market. But what advice do you have for potential buyers that may be on the fence? Why should they buy before winter?
They should buy before winter. If you're out there in the market looking, you're not going to have the competition that you're going to have in the springtime. Now, it's relative where you're not probably going to have the same number of choices. But if you're serious about buying, if you have to buy, if timing is important to you, this is a great time. The rates are still low. People who are on the market are very serious about selling. They want to sell. You're going to see some houses come off the market for the holidays. Those people still want to sell, but they're not under the same motivation that people you see who are going to maintain on the market through December. Those people are ready to rock.